for Jim Morrison of The Doors, uh, legendary rock singer, songwriter. If you look to the eastern horizon using Vedic sidereal zodiac, not Western tropical zodiac, you would see the constellation associated with Capricorn rising at 19 degrees. First, we're going to look and see how the planets are operating in his chart. Then we'll look and see when they're operating during timing of events in his life. And then we'll look and see what could have been done to um, rectify the chart. So first off, in a Capricorn chart, if there's any multicone signs in the 6th, 8th, or the 12th house, they become functional malefic planets along with Rahu and Ketu, and they can cause some disturbance. So we see Leo, the 5th sign of Leo is in the 8th house. So Sun rules Leo, and it becomes functional malefic, along with the 9th sign of Sagittarius in the 12th house, ruled by Jupiter. So Jupiter, Sun, Rahu, and Ketu can cause some difficulties, either in the birth chart or the transit chart. So Sun it is within 3 degrees of the rising sign of 19. It's at 22 degrees. So that means that it afflicts the house that it's in and 7 houses away. So it's afflicting the house of income and then also the house of creativity. So, and children. So there was issues with several paternity suits that were against him. It is the prime health indicator, and because it is disturbing things, it represents father. So he did rebel against his father, and apparently his father was abusive. It also represents the heart. He did die of a heart attack. But it did give him some leadership skills and the ability to create and research music and to look into the deeper meaning of life and express that through his songwriting. Then we have Moon. It's sitting in the house ruled by Aries, ruled by Mars, and Mars in this chart is weak, so Moon becomes weak, and Mars, Moon, is ruling the house of partnerships, and so his success is somewhat due to his partnerships in the music business, agents, etc., and his ability to perform for the public. Moon signifies public, and it also signifies heart. So he did die of heart failure. Then we have weak, afflicted Mars. Mars is afflicted by Ketu, and it is ruling the house of happiness, and so it brings happiness through sitting in the house of creativity. So his happiness comes through his ability to create and entertain others. And then we have Jupiter, which is placed in the 8th house, which makes it weak. It's a challenging house. And it's afflicted it is ruling the house of 12th house. And so the 12th house has to do with expressing the ability to take on different roles, to separate himself, and also that house has to do with addictions, drug addiction, sex addiction, and other kinds of vulnerabilities. But sitting in that eighth house gives him the ability to express that through his songs again. Then we have Mercury, which is also poorly placed in a challenging house, the 12th house, and it is afflicted, and it rules the house of good fortune. So it gives good fortune through and good fortune through taking on roles in his concerts, singing in front of large public audiences. Um, Now, because Mercury is weak, Mercury has to do with the mind. So there was some manic depression, some asthma, epilepsy, all which can be uh, associated with Mercury. Then Venus is ruling the career house um, in its own. It's placed in its own sign, and it gives a career through performing arts and entertainment. Then we have Saturn. Saturn is weak in infant state. It is less than 5 degrees. Any planet that's less than 5 or more than 25 is said to be difficult in promoting and supporting its own significations. So Saturn rules the house of wealth, fame, and also stability in relationships. So he did have some financial issues. Um, and it's sitting in the sixth house, so also it's poorly placed. So his wealth and fame came through expressing and healing his inner conflict, and there was a lot of controversy around his lyrics as well, and that could be attributed to Mercury. When Mercury is weak, um, the speech can be controversial. Then we have functional malefic Rahu and Ketu. Displacement opposite each other, first house, seventh house, is balancing his needs with the needs of other people. And because Rahu and Ketu are within 5 degrees of the rising sign degree, they afflict the houses they're in, and plus 6 out of the 12 houses. So they're afflicting the house of stability in relationships, the house of success, the house of finances, the house of career, and Rahu and Ketu itself can be associated with sexual and drug addiction and legal issues with the paternity suits. Let's look at the timing of events. So he moved and became addicted to alcohol and drugs in 1964. That's during a Sun period. Sun ruling that house of eighth house of sex, drugs, and rock and roll. And then we have he started the Doors, the band, in a Venus period in 65. In 67, he got a big break to be on the Ed Sullivan Show, and the hit song Light My Fire was at the top of the charts, and that's during a Moon Rahu period. So the relationship with Ed Sullivan really boosted his career. And then in he came out with a hit song or hit album, Lord of New Creatures, where he talked about lizards in 1969 during a Saturn period. Saturn again bringing some controversial speech. Then he had the album Morrison Hotel in 1970. and he got arrested. Now that's during a Jupiter period. He also moved to Paris at that time. And then in 1971, he had a OD'd on um, heroin and had a heart attack. And at that time, if you look at the transit chart on the left, you'll see that Sun was close to the most effective point also in the transit chart. So it's afflicting the house of health and the sixth house of health and the 12th house of end of life, also longevity. And so, as well as that, Rahu and K2 were also close to the most effective point, afflicting the first house, which is the body, and also representing longevity. Um, if Now, what could be done to remedy this chart? He died at a very, very young age, so some remedies would have really helped with his longevity as well as his addictions. So, transforming Rahu, K2, Jupiter, and Sun by helping other people, doing charity work. He was doing some of that, but much more would have been helpful. And then strengthening the rest of the weak planets with my favorite remedy, a kavash. It's a silver locket containing the Devata yantras and mantras for those planets that we wanted to strengthen in the chart. If you'd like to purchase or see a kavash, you can go as well as get a reading or learn Vedic astrology. You can go to www.vastucreations.com. Thank you so much for listening.